Every year, there are thousands of albums that release out into the wild for me and you to experience. But there's only a select few that is the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme, the cream of the cream. I'm talking about the top 10. Now, when most people create a ranking list, they usually just pick 10, yap for a bit, and call it good. But no, I tell you, me being a tryhard, I'm gonna do the absolute most. I'm gonna do something never done before in the history of humanity. I'm gonna create 10 separate artworks, organize them in a 37 by 25 inch stacking pyramid. This is an original idea. 2025 was arguably my favorite year of music, and today I'm gonna be ranking my favorite albums and making art off of each of them. Now, this list will be completely objective and definitely not subjective based upon my own personal interests and feelings upon each album. When creating the design for each section, I wanted to best visualize the feeling of the entirety album based on story, production, and album cover. What colors are featured on the album cover? What are the main themes of the entire project? Then also, what relates back to the actual sonic quality of each songs? What is the whole scope of the project? I want the art I create to relate back to these themes, while also being an artistic abstract expression of what it's inspired from. In 2024, I'd made an artwork called 12 Loves, where each of the blocks was based off my 12 favorite songs at the time. And I told myself I would never make that print ever again, because printing it took 10 hours. But here we are, doing it again. Jeez, just something just spilled on my leg. Why is my leg wet? Wet Leg is a band who makes music. In 2025, they released their second album, Moisturizer. I love the entire story of this album, showcasing the dichotomy of wanting love and being obsessed with a person, but also being adverse to the idea of love at the same time. At 12 tracks and 38 minutes long, it's a perfect length of bangers on bangers, creating a great listening experience. The album cover reflects this sentiment, with Rian Teasdale as the focal point, trying to scare off potential interests in the I Heart Me socks, with Hester Chambers in the background giving herself a hug. I love how this entire sentiment is reflected across the entire album, even through the track listing. CPR and Liquid Eyes establish love as a desire, then in Catch These Fists, it's being adverse to it, just to be alone with your friends. Davina McCall and Jennifer's Body are back to desiring love, with then Man Get Out being adverse to it, along with just men in general, which is very similar to Catch These Fists. It's a very compelling pattern and contrast throughout the entire record by having such different sounding tracks with different subject matters spread throughout to get a nice contrast within the story, but still relating back to the entire thesis of the record and creating a dynamic listening experience. What I love most in this album is definitely the songwriting about love, because it is described as something that is longed for by everyone. Duh! I think my favorite part of this album is how catchy the entire thing is. From the guitars to the choruses, all the melodies are just earworms that just get stuck in my head. In a genre where it's incredibly easy to sound like everyone else, I feel like modern indie rock can be very cookie cutter, copying inspirations from the past without putting their own voice into the project. Whereas Wet Leg does a great job at crafting fun, catchy songs that are well done and true to themselves. When creating the artwork based off this album, I wanted to kind of recreate the corner of the room that's featured on the main album cover, while taking to heart the main theme of the album's storytelling of wanting love, but also having your guard up. So I drew a heart at the junction point of the room, enclosed by these circles and patterns to kind of represent that feeling. I wanted to throw in some funny references to the song titles on the album too, by putting 11:21 on the clock, having a cool Squirtle in the background referencing Pokemon, and a character dipping their dogs into the pond, like in Pond Song. I Heart Me is a reference to the socks, and there are dead trees in the background referencing the trees that were actually outside of the house on the actual photo shoot for the album. For the color of the print, I wanted to reference the color of the carpet and the walls by creating this weird blue-brown color, which I think looks really nice. The finished print turned out really nice. The technique I did on getting that Squirtle, fantastic, crisp, amazing line work. I really Heath created that piece, didn't I? Twerp is a band who makes music. Their members include Commander Meowch, Lord Phobos, Have Hogan, and Dr. Sung. In 2025, they released their album, The Longest Weekend. Now, out of everything on this list, this will probably be the most biased I am out of everything. Twerp blends some of my favorite genres, like talk box from Daft Punk, song composition from Masayoshi Takanaka and City Pop, and then songwriting about robots with human emotions. Are you kidding me? That's some of my favorite things! The Longest Weekend is a sequel album to their 2024 album Digital Nightmare, which features a story about escaping from life through technology and the looming possibilities of AI. With no service as the intro, it serves as the perfect continuation of that story. Getting rid of your phone to travel to a lake house with your friends for the longest weekend. This album is very direct in the storytelling, but I don't see it as an actual negative to the album itself. I very much enjoy the easy entry into music as it allows for straightforward enjoyment. Within critiques of art, being simplistic in storytelling is usually portrayed as a negative, but I find that this is not necessarily true and there's nuance in this fact. Take this Cameron Winter clip, for example.
Like the clearer the message, sometimes the less powerful it can come across, or it doesn't quite come across very artistically, you should just make a tweet.
I agree and disagree with what he's saying here. The intention behind creating a finished piece of art in the end can dilute the actual finished process. But I disagree with the quote, "The clearer the message, the less powerful it can come across." Take, for example, Starting From Scratch. This song is incredibly straightforward in its storytelling, of validating the artistic process and doing whatever it takes to get it done while also loving what you do. It's a very direct approach to writing, but because it's so direct, it is very effective. I connect deeply to it because it is so on the nose. It would be like if the song About You by the 1975 was actually called About Nothing, and throwing in some twists and turns within the writing. I don't think that version of that song would be as effective as the original. The two songs that made The Longest Weekend the album stand out to me was definitely Stargazing and The Longest Weekend. There's this great transition between the two songs, and then I really love the sentiment of the song The Longest Weekend, kind of capturing this feeling of leaving a place and a beautiful memory that you shared with friends. It's this very deeply melancholic experience that I have felt before in my life, so I like that song a lot. I have a deep appreciation also for this album because there was a point in time this year where I was having panic attacks and intense stress from a variety of sources, and I just took a long walk around a lake listening to this album. It really helped me push through those internal struggles I was having, allow me to clear my mind, so this album means a lot to me. I started the composition based off Yukio-e Prince, since there's a song on the album called Yukio-e, and created a circle inner notch border. I liked the idea of creating this weird, vague place that kind of exists in the memory of recollecting a time with friends and family. So I just made a lot of lines also. At the bottom, I put one of my favorite motifs of showing love and connection with Venn diagrams. And I put Pac-Man in the sky, because why not? I'm unbounded and free. I put a little house within the hills, clouds within the sky, a little TLW for the album title, and a rainbow encasing everything. I wanted the color for this piece to be a yellowish green, similar to the green on the front prairie in the album cover. This was the first piece I carved in this set, and it turned out really nice and crisp. I cooked with that color, didn't I? It looks so fresh and so clean.
Yeah. Cool. Cool job, Heath.
Black Country New Road is a band who makes music. And in 2025, they released their third album, Forever How Long. I would describe their music as a kind of art rock. Lots of nice strings with also some folk influences. Forever How Long is their first studio album since their previous frontman, Isaac Wood, left the band for mental health reasons. With his departure comes a completely different stylistic choice in terms of mood. Their previous music is very melancholic, and with their new album they continue this writing approach, but also adding a lot more hope, specifically in songs like Besties and Socks. My favorite lyric from the album is definitely, "Life is good, and I'm understood. Do you? If you don't, let me know." I do really love the production on this album. It feels very unique and truly owning their own sound, with various instruments and styles used throughout it, keeping engagement high. It's an interesting blend of modern pop sensibility with classical influences along with rock. Do I know what I'm talking about? Do you trust me? The thing I love most about the album is the themes of persisting through various different struggles, and then coming to the end of that tunnel to then live with hope for the future. Socks, Happy Birthday, and Goodbye Don't Tell Me all carry varying themes along the lines of that theme. The only negatives I'd have about this album is there are a few songs that do not stick the landing as much as others. For the Cold Country and Mary are two examples of songs that didn't really stick the landing for me, but overall it's a unique, sick, nasty, awesome album. For compositional elements, I wanted to focus on a central star, similar to the star in the sun's hand on the album cover, with then having various references throughout the rest of the artwork. The various stars throughout, actual album cover guy, a horse animation running across the print, starting more abstract and then getting more real. There's a young man holding tongs. I don't own any tongs, so I'm using my hand. Did you know Fart Caspian is just one guy who makes music? He's one dude. Did you know that? In 2025, he released the band's third album, Autofiction. The thing I love most about Fart Caspian's entire discography is the intensity to which he layers so many different sounds. Some songs will have 6 different guitars layered on top of one another, with a synth as the drum beat, or a classic drum set. The music is incredibly layered, textured, and full of life. Throughout this album, the production is at the forefront, with very intense use of drums and guitars. Like the climax on An Outstretched Hand / Rain from Here to Carry is just so fire. When Fart Caspian plays live, he plays with a full band, and it's something I wish I could have seen this year, but he was touring near my area at a really busy time this year, and I wish I could have gone, but alas, it's okay. A lot of his songs tend to lean on the melancholic side, with Autofiction acting as a rebirth in a new style of songwriting. With this new album, Joel Johnston takes a more direct approach to his abstract writing style, trying to get his message across more clearly by trying to live with the cards that you are dealt in life, and living with a more grateful, positive outlook. Specifically on the album, Johnston is depicting his struggles with mental health, Crohn's disease, and self-forgiveness. It's taking a deep look into his own life, struggles, and looking to find the things he enjoys. This album exists in a place where it isn't melancholy and it isn't fully gratitude, but it's contentment. Being content with the negative things in your life, living with these aspects, and trying to find enjoyment throughout the day-to-day experiences of being alive. I really related to the themes of making the most of the present moment, specifically on End and Here Is Now. So when creating the art based off the album, I knew I wanted to write a poem based on the lyrics from the songs. I decided to base the composition and color off the album very directly, along with a Venn diagram section acting as the label logo on the cover and a reference to the song First Day, with being a supportive and loving partner. I wanted the color to be that nice deep sky blue, and I think it turned out really nice. Didn't need to overcomplicate this one. Geese is a band who makes music, not to be confused with Gaggle. In 2025, they released their third album, Getting Killed. If you're somewhat aware of music this year, you might have known that Geese is kind of blown up this year. To go to show how much my music taste has changed, I remember when 3D Country came out, and I listened to it, and I really did not like it. Whereas now, I really love that album and this new one. People can learn and grow? They can change? Baby, you can change if you still choose me? In all seriousness, I did not expect this album to be on this list. I just kept listening and In all seriousness, I didn't expect this album to be on this list. As I just kept listening, it just got higher and higher in the rankings. The hilariousness of Trinidad, Cobra being just such a banger. I just want to dance. And then Getting Killed. It's just so good. It's so good. As Cameron Minter said earlier in this video, his writing style has lots of twists and turns, from being very direct and emotional to funny misdirections. The entire project is surrounded by the absurdities of current life, reflections of your past, and honestly, sometimes I don't know because I'm kind of a dummy. My favorite song off the album is probably Getting Killed, the song, as it has the most intense variations across track listing in terms of songwriting and production. It starts off very intense, then as it builds it gets more melancholic, nostalgic, and somber. The beat drop on Taxes actually just goes so insane, and Taxes is the song that really made me fall in love with Geese, although Nausicaa Love Will Be Revealed off Cameron Winter's solo album also really made me love Geese in general, but that doesn't count. It's a solo record, not Geese. This artwork was definitely the most fun I had out of any of the artworks. I wanted to capture all of the absurdities and references throughout this album, as it's emotional and hilarious at the same time. For the color of the print, I wanted that nice, light sky blue color, similar to the cover, with the background white paper acting as the intense sun glare in the picture. I drew Cameron Winter half real and half not to reference the song. We got various lyrics from songs along with "There's a bomb in my car!" and a drawing of my actual car, the wonderful 2011 Honda CR-V. There's a cobra in my hand, an island of men. If you want me to pay my taxes, you're gonna have to nail me down. The gun from the album cover, a sailor on a big boat with a big coat, and he is free. Cameron Winter stuck in a gumball machine. That drawing is so dumb, it looks hilarious. There are 100 horses, maybe 124. And then in the top left is a person getting a lobotomy because, yes, a lobotomy. You're telling me there's a band called Goose and another band called Geese. What's next, Gaggle? Spacey Jane is a band who makes music. In 2025, they released their third album, If That Makes Sense. I'll be the first to say that this album is depressing, but it is so good. Please trust me. I'm just a humble little boy on YouTube making... I think the thing I love most is the production on this album. The guitars make me feel like I'm floating in the ocean, specifically on Through My Teeth, Falling Apart, and the chimes in So Much Taller. The subtle reverb and just mixing throughout is fantastic. It's no surprise the album was produced by Mike Crossey, who produced the 1975 and Arctic Monkeys. The drums and estimated delivery are definitely my favorite drums of the year. So layered, so textured, but also so punchy and so catchy. The main guitar riff on All the Noise is just so sick. It goes so hard. Absolute cinema. My favorite moment on the entire album, however, is definitely the synthesizers in How to Kill Houseplants. They just get stuck in my head as such an addicting song, and I love the metaphor for the message. It's very effective. So much of this album is reflecting on heartbreak and feeling bad about yourself and trying to cope with heartbreak. So much of this album's writing is reflecting on heartbreak, feeling bad about yourself, and struggling to pull yourself out of that rut. I was able to see them in concert this year for the first time, and it was fantastic. They sounded better than the recordings and were so fun. It was an incredibly upbeat and enjoyable show, even if most of their lyrics can be depressing at times. When ideating potential ideas for the artwork based off the album, I kept coming back to the title of the album, If That Makes Sense. From my understanding within the context of the album, I would define it as proclamating your complicated feelings to someone and not feeling sure about the way you communicated, or self-doubt. So for the visual composition of the art, I thought it would be a fun exercise to try to visualize that definition, because I'm somewhat of an artist myself. I wanted to show the contrast of communication versus feelings through a super visually dense design, juxtaposed by simplistic shapes. For the simplistic shapes at the center, I based them off the light fixtures at the concert as these horizontal rectangles spreading through the middle of the piece. All of the other mark making was based on the experience of listening to the album, taking the experience for what it is, and seeing what happens. There's a couple references to songs like The Little House Plant in the lyric, Throwing Up on the Balcony. I really love what turned out with the heart and the reflection of it underneath of the inner pain after a heartbreak. You know, there's something to be said about that. Was that pretentious enough for you? Do you want more? The album cover features all of the band members in this white void, blurred out. And I wanted to kind of recapture this feeling, but in a new and interesting way. I did this through taking 3 colors, blending them, and then using a brayer in random ways on the block to kind of create this iridescent color pattern that can't be recreated. Did that make sense? You know what? that did make sense. It does make sense. It makes sense. You know, it makes sense. I did a good job on this piece. It makes sense. Good job, Heath. Heath created that. It makes sense.
If I went to McDonald's, yeah, I think I'd poop my pants. I mean, why wouldn't I? I think, yeah, I would poop my pants. I mean, like, why wouldn't I? I mean, like, yeah, I'd poop my pants.
Parcels is a goated band who makes goated music. In 2025, they released their third album, Loved. Now we're getting into the territory where these next 4 albums are tiers above the others, in my humble, I'm so humble opinion. Parcels has been one of my favorite bands from the last 2 years, as their music is another blend of some of my favorite genres. 70s funk, yacht rock guitars and song composition, collaborations with Daft Punk and their production sensibility, their beautiful vocal harmonies, and the Rhodes piano, truly couldn't ask for more. Also, side note, the Rhodes piano is the best piano of all time. It's got this beautiful synthesizer quality to it, but it is also analog while having a striking mechanism within the construction of the piano. I think it's better than the Wurlitzer, but that's just me. Back to your regularly scheduled programming? Loved is a response to Parcels' last album, Day/Night, and it is a return to a place of longing for happiness and love. Day/Night was a deeply emotional, reflective album, and one I absolutely love. It's the album I fell in love with Parcels because of their ability to create beautiful musical compositions while also being deeply reflective. The reason why Loved is now my favorite record in Parcels' discography is because it blends their 2 different styles of writing. It returns to their self-titled sound in a way, but also their writing sensibilities from Day/Night. They can make a banger like You Got Me Feeling, but then you look at the lyrics and they're just incredibly sad. So good. I relate to this album throughout. It's such a satisfying listen with the ups of Think About It, If You Call, and To Be Loved, while having emotional songs like Somewhere in Love, I Want to Be Your Light Again, and Safe and Sound. This album truly has everything. To Be Loved has an opener. It's just so good. That piano. Don't get me started on the Rhodes piano again, please. I was able to see them in concert this fall, and it was just so good. The way they can blend sounds like yacht rock and house music together, but then make it so tight is so good. They closed out the concert with a 10-minute or so version of You Got Me Feelin', with the first half reflecting the album version being a guitar-heavy rendition, then directly leading into a house-extended outro. It felt like I was inside the confines of a dance club in Paris, rather than a salt factory in Chicago. That experience perfectly exemplifies why I love Parcels so much. It's just how they can blend so many genres seamlessly together, while also being rooted within their love of music and making absolute bangers. This concert was one of my favorites I've ever been to. In my opinion, the best concerts are where they take the studio recordings and then enhance it with additional melodies on top of the previous studio melodies, and this album was the peak of that experience. I love this concert so much to the point where afterwards I wanted to create some merch designs inspired by them. I made these in 2 days. I am a workaholic. During the extended outro of You Got Me Feelin', I saw it. I saw the final composition, at least the start of it. I switched out the hearts and turned the band members into these kind of prism shapes at the top. In the main composition, I was thinking about love as this beautiful, wonderful experience, this transformative thing that is epic, grand, yet simple. Inhaler is a band who makes music. In 2025, they released their third album, Open Wide. Why is every album on this list third in their discography? What's going on? When the first single came out for Open Wide, I had a feeling this whole album was going to be awesome. And as time went on and I kept listening to it over and over, it just kept getting better and better. I think the thing I love most about Inhaler is how they consistently, over and over, create songs that are just incredibly catchy, but aren't overly repetitive. They just get stuck in your head. The first 8-track run on Open Wide is just genuinely insane how they go back to 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 back on how good that album is. I find the production on this album to be really intriguing as it's a continuation of their established sound, but there are subtle changes throughout the record that stand out. Choir backing vocals, more piano throughout. It creates for a fantastic, compelling modern rock record that as a genre doesn't get much love nowadays. The story of the album spans across many different threads like addiction and the complexities of being in a relationship. When creating the artwork, I wanted to reference the imagery that is on the album covers with these beautiful different flowers. The flowers on the album cover kind of act as something beautiful growing in the darkness. In my last video, I created artwork based off seeing Inhaler in concert titled Ecstasy. So for the patterns and colors, I felt very comfortable referencing that artwork and that kind of world I created. I started with creating the kind of wave patterns at the bottom, and then proceeded to make abstracted flowers based off the actual flowers on the different album covers. There are harsh shadows throughout the covers, so I wanted to reference that within my version of the artwork. At the top was a person with their arms out, open wide. For the color of the album, I wanted just a crisp, stark, saturated red, and the finished print turned out so nicely. I love the void that's created in the background. It looks really good. Nice job, me. Sam Fender is a man who makes music. In 2025, he released his third album, People Watching. Sam Fender's writing is incredibly diverse on the record. He creates catchy melodies and choruses to sing along to, while also delving into the political and mental state of what it's like being alive in these modern times. But the thing I love most about his writing is that it's deeply emotional, with immense layers of subtext, while also being enhanced by the musical composition. The lyrics and music are two of the same, moving with each other, telling the entire story of the song. The album sways between upbeat anthems like People Watching and Little Bit Closer, with emotional ballads like Remember My Name and Crumbling Empire. It's a very interconnected album experience from top to bottom that is upbeat and catchy, but is layered with the beauty within the songwriting. There's something about the way he constructs songs that just hits me deep in the soul that I deeply relate and connect with. Like when I heard Talk to You for the first time, I loved it immediately and proceeded to listen to it over and over again. When I listen to that song, I just think of the complexities of living as an adult and how difficult it is to make time for your friends and family, longing for more time where there isn't enough time in the day. That piano from Elton John just honestly breaks my heart. It's so pretty. Adam Granduciel of The War on Drugs produces this record, and his influence is heavy across the entire thing, which is amazing because The War on Drugs is one of my favorite bands. Their way of layering sounds that feels like a painting is being created in your mind with these flowing interconnected shapes is just my favorite. And that style of music production continues with this album. Throughout this entire album, there's a lingering sense of nostalgia within the songwriting as well as the sonic quality of the album. It feels like I'm being transported to a place in my mind where nostalgia exists and I'm reflecting on my entire life and memories as I've lived it. Specifically in Nostalgia's Lie, where he writes about, "What is this place? Can you take me to somewhere, darlin', where I feel safe? Down the violent path in the oak tree hollow, I was spinning and laughing. Was it ever what I thought it truly was?" The place that exists in your mind that is nostalgia, and nostalgia can lie to you. By looking in the past, it haunts you from ever truly being in the present moment. It tells phantom stories of what life was like in the past, which can blind you. These thoughts and specific feelings are consistent across the whole album of wanting to be remembered, appreciated, and understanding the questions of the world. I feel pulled of this place of nostalgia that exists in my mind, these pools of experiences interconnected by the webs of my memories. I feel this inclination to visualize what nostalgia looks like as an abstract visual concept. This artwork was incredibly easy and natural to make as it flowed out incredibly quickly. There was no laboring over it, questioning, or overthinking. It just happened. I wanted to have a central memory in the composition to act like a pool of memories that exists, with shapes that reference the actual album cover itself, by working class photographer Tish Murtha, depicting 5 men playing cards at a table. When printing this carving, I wanted to reference the grayscale nature of the assets of the album, with not having a pure black, but maybe like a 90% black, with a little bit of white. This artwork was super easy and natural for me to make. I think it turned out pretty cool. Do you? Joe is a man whose name is also Joe Keery, who's also Steve, who makes music. In 2025, he released his third album, The Crux. This album was my biggest inspiration this year, both artistically and personally. I've been a huge fan of Joe since 2019 and his hit song Roddy came out, and so this album was my most hyped album of this year, and it lived up to its potential. To see him in concert this year, right after I got off work on a random Tuesday, I drove 3 hours, saw him in concert, and then proceeded to drive back 3 hours, and then go to work the next day. It was a really long night, to be honest, but totally worth it. It's also one of my favorite memories from this past year, as I'm grateful I had two of my best friends come along with me. I was so locked in on seeing him live this year. The inspirations behind this album are so sick, where you got LCD Soundsystem being the inspiration on Basic Being Basic. You got Supertramp being the inspiration behind the instruments of like the Wurlitzer piano, as well as the Beatles being an inspiration on Charlie's Garden. It's just so sick, because then also you have Tame Impala, who was a huge inspiration for Joe across his entire music discography, but as well as Egg being kind of a spiritual successor to One More Hour. But the thing I love most about this album is the story. The crux in its entirety of the story, including the deluxe album, acts as the ultimate response to a breakup, in questioning your place in the world when you doubt yourself. The deluxe side acts as the prelude, the context for the story, and very direct heartbreak. But it's portrayed with a certain nuance, like in Purgatory Silver Star, taking action for the things you took for granted while also still feeling a longing for this past connection. As the deluxe album builds, it ends with Awake, acting as the spiritual enlightenment for the actual album to take hold. The first two songs on The Crux act as an entry into the world of The Crux, his state of mind if you will, and a re-entry into the sonic landscape of the album. There is an intense variety across the entire album, with Link being a banger nostalgic rock song, Potion as a soft love song that builds into a huge climax, power ballads like Egg and Fly, Charlie's Garden basically being Penny Lane by the Beatles. The Crux continues to ask the same questions as the deluxe side began with, but it has a more inklings of answers to these questions, like in Fly with him choosing to live on his own. Back on You and The Crux have a wonderful transition of a choir, and this is where the answers to the questions established across the entire album really start to take hold. Acknowledging his love for his sisters, leaning on other people, while appreciating the people you have in life, the final song, Crux, features the answer to all the questions previously laid out in the entire saga before. Get back to your heart, only if you give it back again, is my favorite lyric of the year, as one of my biggest sources of inspiration. I made 2 shirt designs this year based off that lyric, separating the lyric into 2 halves, as there are 2 actions in that lyric. Getting back to your heart and then giving back. I wanted to capture the feeling of both lyrics, with the difference between the 2 designs being evident but overall connected. Getting back to who you are, learning who you are as a person, living and growing, accepting your flaws, and then using that information about yourself to give back to a world in a true, authentic way. In December, I ran a fundraiser for the Give It Back Tea, and we were able to raise $830.90 for St. Jude's Children's Hospital, which is something that I'm really grateful to do, and I've never done it before, so really happy with how it turned out. When creating the art for the lino cut versions of the album, I really struggled with encapsulating an album that is one of my favorites ever with just a single print. I ended up doing 2 carvings, one for the deluxe version and one for the normal version. With the initial album version, I focused on the hectic side of the album, focusing on representing the lyrics and ideas that inspire me. A link breaking out of the chain, a lonesome state of mind, a golden line, deleting a love potion. I had a great time enjoying this album and creating the print version. For the color of this piece, I wanted to reference the lyrics in Egg, Crimson and Gold, by using this yellow and red horizontal gradient. For the Crux Deluxe, I took a different approach to the entire album. I wanted to represent the feeling after listening to the full album top to bottom, all 90 minutes, and what does that feeling look like? Are the pathways in your life clear? Are your questions and doubts answered? I don't really have a full explanation for this one, as it was a very intuitive process. I wanted the gradient to also be a reflection of the original Crux version, as they are symbiotic to one another. I really loved how both of these turned out, and I thought it was really cool to create a print that combined both of these carvings for this album. So I decided last night that I would go see Joe. So we're driving 3 hours there right after we got off work, getting there when it starts, and then driving back after it's done. It's a Tuesday, and I'm going to work at 8 a.m. tomorrow. No, but like, you can actually cut. No, but like, can you cut? the time has come to print the entire print. The crux of the video, you might say. I worked on establishing the grid for each 8-inch by 6-inch lino cut block so that all the prints can then be laid out within the confines of my 37 by 25 paper, making sure everything was centered. Yes, I can do math. Yes, I can do math. Yes, I can do math. So I've been working on getting the calculations for the grid to get all of them in there correctly. Measured it out perfectly with my eyes, mathematically correct. I got those measurements down. Goated. I'm him. Bang. Bang. Let's go. I started this project back in August of 2025, and after building months of anticipation to finally see this print into its full glory, it turned out really nice, and I'm really happy with how it all came to be. I think the thing I love most about music is the place it takes you in your mind, the place that exists beyond your consciousness, where you can close your eyes and truly feel every instrument, lyric, and melody in your being. The music shapes the experience in that present moment, flowing your body through the experience like you're in an ocean, letting your body drift with the water as the waves take you hold. At least that's what I experience with music. I get swept up in the moment. It can be a very spiritual experience, but I love it a lot. I listen to music a lot. Don't look at my Spotify Wrapped. Thank you if you made it this far into the video. It was a beast of a project. It took me about half a year to make all of these artworks and then print them, write the script for this video, whatever. It took a very long time. So thank you for watching this video. It's probably a long one. I don't know yet. Haven't edited, but thank you so much. All of the prints are on my website, so if there was like a specific album you really liked, you can get one of those. And then I also have the full entire artwork, so if you really like this cool video by Heath Creates, you can get it there. Yeah, I got a lot more videos planned for 2026. I'm really excited. I'm gonna really try and make a lot more videos this year. Thank you for watching. Maybe like and subscribe if you like. Hit the hype button maybe. And I hope you have a great time on this application that is called YouTube.com.